In the future, it kind of a big inversion. In the past, physical strength was more valuable, so men were dominant. But in the future, if the ability to calmly concentrate and learn new information when you're a teenager is going to set you up for financial power later in life, maybe we're looking at a future of a lot more women being in a dominant economic position over men. Fresh and Fit has been canceled, in effect demonetized. Andrew Tate has been let off home arrest, though still facing trial. Well, let's talk about the Manosphere. I've been wanting to say something about this stuff for a while, and I'd like to gather my thoughts to say something useful. This phenomenon has been major. And there's some very startling numbers about American men in the economy right now that probably ties in with some of these changing expectations and realities, gender relations for all people, especially younger, but for all men in the United States. Let's start with this statistic. Right now, there's more men in the United States who live in their parents' home than live with a partner. Kind of wild. 3/4 of all the deaths of despair you may have heard of, which is driving the decline in life expectancy for middle-aged, well, it was just middle-aged whites, but stagnating life expectancy for Americans in general, well, 3/4 of them are men. ODs and the suicides of middle-aged people, 3/4 are men. In October of 2019, before the pandemic, the amount of men of prime working age, it is between 25 and 54, that were in the workforce. So now, what does that mean? In the workforce means you're actually counted as being employed or unemployed. If you're unemployed for a very long time or you're not seeking work, they don't even count you, which is a new way they've sort of created to obscure how many American men are not working. In October 2019, the same percentage of American men were participating in the labor force as in October of 1939, which of course was the eve of World War II. It was 10 years into a depression. Unemployment was still bad. The economy was still down. No, not as bad as 1932. Are we on the eve of something similar? Because, of course, when there's too many men with not enough to do, chaos, call it a revolution, call it what you want, may ensue. So now that we have those stats to float in our head, let's get back to Fresh and Fit. If you don't know who they are, it's two foreign guys, a Sudanese and maybe he was West Indian, who had a show that was supposed to tell young guys like them how to work out, look good, make money, meet girls. They have an apartment in Miami. And in the last year or so, they got really popular. They got up over 1 million subscribers. The primary thing that was popular, they would get these girls, these Miami party girls, wherever they were coming from, to come in on the show and say dumb things and be degraded by these guys who are about 10 years older than most of the girls. The girls were, seemed like the floozy types for the most part. There would be arguments. What type of man argues with a woman in public? A bitch-made man. Now, again, this is not really to defend those girls. A lot of them, I didn't watch it that much. A lot of them were trashy, but, it's like picking on the weak, these dumb girls. And it was a real wellspring of bitterness. And as they got really popular, and you could, if you're watching their live stream, you could pay $50, $100 and say a degrading thing, and they would say it to the girls. So it's like going to pick up, prostitutes and then throwing tomatoes at them back at the frat house. And that's something to be too proud of, but they were making money. But why do so many men want to watch this stuff? And that's why I gave you those statistics. Them, along with Andrew Tate, Kevin Samuels, many others, decry the change of traditional values. Of course, women have always probably worked harder than men in general. They raise kids. Men going out, traditional wage job, women staying at home. Well, yeah, that has changed quite a bit. And, why people so mad about it? I think we're going to find that in some statistics, and it was relevant that I mentioned it, Myron, and whatever the other one's name is on Fresh and Fit were foreigners. Even though they're black males, they're not American. In American high school, right now, 2/3 of all the top students by GPA are girls. 2/3 of all the students in the bottom 20%, the really bad students, as is across the whole United States, are boys. For every one good male student, there's 2 girls. For every one really bad female student, there's 2 boys. 2-to-1 ratios at the top and the bottom, with the boys on the bad side. In 2020, a survey of the legal reviews of the top 16 law schools in the United States. What's a legal review? Sort of like a student newspaper, but it's for law students, so it's a little more serious. They might write articles referencing the legal briefs and etc. Very prestigious. You want to get a hotshot job, being the editor of the Harvard Law Review or something. I think maybe Obama was that. All 16 at the top 16 schools were women. All 16. Another stat. Of all the middle-aged people that died during COVID, for every 100 middle-aged women in the U.S., 184 middle-aged men died. Wow. What's that all about? Now let's break this down, the problems for men, boys, into racial and national origin composition. Foreign-born men who dropped out of high school are about as likely to work as American American-born college graduates with lower wages. And foreign men who are married and graduated from high school do just as well as white males that are married and are college graduates. American-born men who dropped out of high school are at the absolute bottom of labor force participation rate. In fact, foreign-born men who drop out of high school work at almost the same rate as foreign-born men who graduate from high school. So now we've discovered something. So maybe that's why these guys at Fresh and Fit, they're both college graduates, but there's a lot of talk now of the FBA versus African Americans, but it's a little bigger than that. Foreign-born men are doing just fine whether they graduate from high school or college, or they don't even graduate from high school. American-born men who drop out of high school are really in a depression, and they have been. They're doing shockingly bad, and I think that's a lot of who's watching these shows like Fresh and Fit. And of course, they can't get a woman. They, in fact, are having a hard time even getting male friends. Here's another statistic. As of last year, the survey was taken. 15% of men, 1 out of 6 men, said they don't have one close friend. In 1990, that same stat was 3%. Wow. So 3%, you would say, well, those are troubled people. But if 1 out of 6, these young men don't have a single male friend, that purports a pretty anti-social behavior or an antisocial personality, right? You can't get along. Well, if you're not in a work environment and you're not in a school environment, that's where you learn to get along with others. It's no wonder. And if you can't get along with a man, how are you going to get along with a woman? So we're seeing the American-born men at the lowest end of the educational pyramid are also, their social skills are atrophying. And they can't even make friends, some of them, which is sad and pretty frightening. And no wonder they're on YouTube taking what little money they have to pay Fresh and Fit to degrade these little girls on the show because they're angry. They don't have any friends. They have nobody to tell them this isn't okay or, hey, John, let's go out. But Coming Apart the State of White America is written about 2010 U.S. Census data, and he looks at the way that these people I'm talking about, in this case, he breaks it down even one more category, the white native-born high school dropouts. Their incarceration rates, life expectancy, likelihood to be killed, income, likelihood to be married, likelihood to enter drug rehab are starting to get real close to that of black men, who are the group of people, not black women, black men, really on the bottom of the economic total. Black women have, and of course there's a lot we could talk about with this, I'm just sticking to the stats, have benefited from affirmative action or doing all right in corporate America. Women in general, for every 100 female bachelor degree graduates, there's only 84 men, though women still only earn 82 cents on the dollar. Interesting, the mismatch between the number of women attaining graduate degrees, bachelor degrees. All 16 of the editors of the top 16 student law papers, women. 2/3 of the top performing girls in high school, or 2/3 of the top performing students in high school, girls. 2/3 of the bottom, boys. And so I think that's the statistical groundwork for understanding the anger amongst young men, the frustration. They think it's women they're mad at. They're just mad at the situation. If you have no earning power, well, you can't even get out of your parents' home, much less start meeting women. So now these same poor quality students who didn't deal well with getting a wrong answer on a test, so they tuned out and ended up being C and D students who dropped out of high school, well, they don't want to be told that's the reason they can't get a girl is because they're undesirable. They want to be told women are bad, and here's a trick to get them more. Make your Instagram picture look like this, talk to them this kind of way, have a wingman, all these tricks. Trust me, tricking your way into any type of relationship, friendship, business relationship, women, it never works out. When you start dealing with sophisticated people, men or women, they immediately sense your insincerity, and you're cut out of relationships with a lot of people. So, young guys, you really need to make sure you graduate high school. You need to try to go to college, and building the skills to be able to have at least friendships with other guys. 15% of you don't even have one close male friend before you can build a friendship and more with women. And these guys from Andrew Tate, who has, a bunch of girls on OnlyFans, a pimp, or whatever he is, a manager, whether he's even not a pimp, to Kevin Samuels, who taught you how to get dressed up to go trick, to the passport bros who want to, if they want to go overseas and pay young, desperate women to have sex with them, just call it that. You don't have to blame women here, because that's what it is. I've been to those countries. It's not, listen, and I'm somewhat of a wild guy. I'm not Mr. Morals. It's not some woman, girl who's like hungry coming up to you and willing to have sex is no big thrill. Unless you don't have sex with women, or even half attractive women. I've been to Brazil once. I went for a friend's wedding. He did not marry. He married a girl he met in graduate school from Brazil, from Brown. She got a PhD, so she wasn't a floozy. It was nice. I didn't like being accosted by prostitutes. You just felt sorry for them. Even the attractive ones, because there was no hope. I mean, her friends were college graduates. They were like throwing themselves at us to be girlfriend, and it was just awkward. I felt bad because the opportunity over there is not there. I've been to Dominican Republic. My friend had a charity down there. They paid me to videotape. Didn't go down there on a tricking expedition. I've never went back. Everywhere you go, girls making eye contact with it was like a little girl. We were going to hospitals giving out medication for autism. And we were in line in a hospital that had no medication, no services, regular people in line. And, you got 12-year-old girls trying to make hard eye contact with you. It's not pleasant. I don't like that kind of stuff. These guys that go down to these countries, listen, you want to go once, you're young guys, soy waddles, or you're middle-aged, I guess. But anyone that could really go back and forth, and like turn a prostitute into a girlfriend. And this isn't about prostitutes being bad. It's just an unequal relationship and power dynamic is kind of sick. That's the sobering statistics about men in America. We need some public policy changes, but of course public policy in this country isn't very good. It's become a cult personality. I'll leave you with this. And there's a book by a guy named Reeves I got a lot of these statistics from. You should read it. I forget what it's called. Reeves. You could just do American male labor force book or something. This is from my knowledge of neuroscience. Your frontal cortex, your decision-making part of your brain, doesn't fully mature till you're about 26. So, but for girls, their brain synapses, their decision-making, their ability to concentrate, on average, happens a year or two faster. So it may be school in the younger years may be a little easier for them on average, just a little bit. So, but in a world where in education, higher education and ability to know a lot of knowledge is increasingly important, perhaps we're looking in the future at kind of a big inversion. In the past, physical strength was more valuable, so men were dominant. But in the future, if the ability to calmly concentrate and learn new information when you're a teenager is going to set you up for financial power later in life, maybe we're looking at a future of a lot more women being in a dominant economic position over men. But maybe neither gender likes that. Maybe that's why we're seeing less birth rates and etc. Something to think about. Our profit policy.